So welcome all. We're excited to have you here today with us today and join the webinar with our partner inQuba. We are very excited to have you with us today and thank you for taking the time. My name is Diana Tuskiewicz, Marketing Director here at the moment, and I will be your host today. With me, I have our speakers. First of all, Mike Renzon, who is CEO and co-founder of inQuba. He's also an Endeavor entrepreneur, the leading high-impact entrepreneurship movement around the world. Mike's thought leadership in customer experience and customer journey management has been adopted by leading companies, and we're quite excited to for him to share his insights with us today. He's joined by my colleague Oliver Skeide, Director XI Consulting at the moment. Oliver has been working in research and consulting for more than 20 years. And in his current position, he mainly advises large companies on the development of expansion of CX programs. He's also a founding member of our CX Academy, and with that is involved in the training of customer experience managers on various subjects. In our webinar today, Mike and Oliver are going to discuss the importance of customer journeys, sharing best practices, and how you as a brand can anticipate customer behaviors and guide them to closing the journey. And as a result, for you, of course, to achieve your business results. For any questions you may have throughout the webinar, please drop them in the Q&A window. We have left some time at the end of this webinar for us to answer these questions, so please do not hesitate to ask at any time. And with that, Mark, over to you.
Thanks so much, Diana. So, just an interesting analogy and some interesting insight around customer journey and customer journey management. The inspiration really comes from Starling memorations, and they were always a mystery. And a zoologist named Wayne Potts in 1984 was able to first start understanding the memorations of starlings. And what he found is that it always seemed to be this random kind of movement, but by using high-speed cameras and enough data, he was able to understand the rules of how starlings actually flock. And just out of interest, there are a couple of basic rules. And the first one is that when you look at them, everyone thinks that the birds follow the leader, which is not true. The transition speed is they can't move quickly enough to be able to follow the leader. They actually follow 6 or 7 birds around them, and they move almost like an AI kind of pack, moving with 7 birds around them to create the movement. There are also some basic rules that they follow. In terms of the movement, it's always an inward movement rather than an outward movement, because they're looking for things to eat, and they tend not to separate from the pack because they're not susceptible to predators. And inQuba has been studying these customer journeys now. We're a 12-year-old company. For the last 5 years, we've been very focused on gaining data and gathering data, very granular data around customer journeys. And what we're able to see in the data is that the patterns of how customers move through journeys, when we really study it with that level of granularity and that level of data, these patterns are actually predictable. And we see as well that they don't seem to be predictable, but with enough data, they are predictable. And the big difference between this journey management approach versus journey mapping is that journey mapping is one hypothesis of what customers will do. We've seen from the data that customers very rarely follow that hypothesis, and they move in ways that are unanticipated. And that has been accelerated a lot because of digitization and the channels that customers have available to them at this particular point in time. So what we see in these journeys when we analyze them with enough data is that there is a flow. And I thought about this analogy a little bit more. The same way as a predator can change the shape of the murmuration, we found that this idea of a nudge or a highly contextualized intervention can change the way that the journeys are shaped, which is really good news. It means that if there are things that you're trying to do as an organization, and those things are going to take a long time, they could take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, there's a lot that you can do during that period of time to actually change the direction of your customers. I'm going to just hand over to Oliver to talk a little bit about CX and the role of CX in Journey and the inQuba and InMoment partnership.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, good morning also from my side. Very excited to be here in this webinar, and the reason is that we just announced our partnership with inQuba, and we are very, very excited about having now an integrated solution that we offer to the market. So basically, what we now can offer as a joint proposition is that we can achieve what people in CX were always looking for. So we are able to combine what people feel, so what they provide as a sentiment, as comment, as an evaluation in their surveys, and what they actually do. So we are able to much better understand what really drives frustration or what really is exciting to people and drive positive experiences. So also we are able to move away a bit from a touch point perspective to a journey perspective. So helping companies to overcome internal silos, also being a bit more proactive and being able to better identify where exactly they have to move the needle. And going even one step further, in CX to date, we are used to wait for a negative experience or for negative feedback in order to follow up with customers, to close the loop. Now, as Mike has already briefly mentioned, we are also able to be proactive in the sense that we can send these nudges, these interventions to customers who do not necessarily have an interaction, who are probably undecided, and who exactly need this additional piece of information or this soft push in order to go through their, for example, purchase channel and to decide for your company. Rather quickly, before we go into more detail, let me quickly talk a little bit about journey management opposed to journey mapping, because there's a lot of buzz going on in the industry around journeys, and just to provide you some quick background information. So journey mapping, as also Mike has briefly mentioned, it's basically a workshop-based approach where employees draft a journey map based on their own expertise and experience. So as said, it's a hypothesis, and it's also a static view of the map. So resulting in a PDF or a poster, it's a one-in-time effort. And we know journeys are dynamic, and with customer journey management, we are talking about a data-driven software solution that displays real journeys from all of your customers, and that is also much more action-oriented, really driving business performance, helping customers to achieve their goals. And how this looks like, that's exactly what Mike is going to talk about now.
Great, thank you, Oliver. So in building out these journeys, I think the first step is journeys require a lot of data, and it's not practical to take every single experience or every episode and convert it into a journey. So companies would typically look at their CX data, and where they see a particular problem, they would then zoom in. So I often think of, if you want to play CX versus journey, CX is the broad view, journey is the zoom in lens. And we use a 5-step methodology, which we've developed over the years, which works really, really well, and it lends itself to CX professionals. So the first step is to discover the real journeys. What we do in that step is we digitize data. So that data comes from across your organization. If it's online data or app data, it's very easy to bring into the inQuba journey environment. We do that with Google Tag Manager and a number of other techniques that we use. If it sits on line of business systems or backend systems, there's a range of other capabilities that we use within the platform to bring that data in. But the essence is what we're trying to do is we want to build out the journey, we want to understand the journey, and once we bring in that particular data, we want to be able to render that journey, so the real journey, not the journey map. So that's step one. Step two is to start understanding points of interest. Step three is analytics, to overlay the voice of a customer. So around a point of interest, we would micro-survey. That's a very, very small group of people that we would be interested in getting some kind of result out around why they did something. Step three is to overlay the analytics. Step four is to move into orchestration. So now we understand the problem, what kind of things are we going to do to change the shape of the murmuration, so to speak. And step five is really around the optimization. What do we need to do to move through the optimization? And we've been able to apply this to a range of use cases very successfully, from customer acquisition to customer onboarding. There's something really exciting that we're doing called a brand-infused journey, which I'll talk a little bit about. So moving through this step by step, what we do, particularly from an inQuba approach, which we've seen to be is really powerful, is we start off with a goal, and that goal is usually a monetary-based goal. So it could be, if we can get our customers to this particular point, it could be acquisition, it could be onboarding, or if we can get our customers to stay in a retention journey without leaving this point, that is where we would put that $sign, and it sits somewhere within the journey, and it's a physical thing defined in the platform. What we then want to do is we want to move through the sequence of things to answer particular questions around how they reach that particular goal point. And I've laid out the questions there, and I'm going to go through them in sequence. So the first two questions, where are they going and did they get there? We handle that in step one. So what you see in front of you is the rendering of the journey. And this rendering is actually a digital rendering. So if we see something like a recursion that's happening, or customers getting stuck in a loop, it will render like that. The thickness of the line shows how many customers flow through that journey. If there are points where things cycle back, you'll get a loop coming back. So important thing to note is that this is fully rendered. It's not a journey. It's not a journey map. And we set up the goals on the particular journey. And then in step two, we want to know, well, if they got to a point or they didn't get to a point, what happened? What do they value? And what was the thing that made them fall off, and how they're feeling? And that's where we go into it's a slightly different approach. It's one that inQuba has developed and invented for to handle quite a complex problem, but to do it really easily. We built out something called the value model, and the value model we use in Moments Lexalytics to do this. And we basically ask a very simple question like, hey Mike, please tell us why you fell off this particular journey. And we then categorize that into economic, functional, symbolic, which is brand-based reasons, or experiential, which is the traditional role of the customer experience domain. And based on those particular reasons, we then classify them, and you can see the kind of classification sitting there. So if we move on, we then want to overlay what we see in step two, which is the voice of the customer, over the journey information and the customer information. That's step three, which is the analytics. And we want to analyze the problem and understand exactly what happens around the problem. And the way that we do that is by clicking on whatever journey line that we're interested in. And there's a range of analytics. We can see a drop-off point. We can see time lapses. So the concept of time, very often in financial services, there could be an ID and verification. There could be a credit check. There could be a time to deliver a credit card. There could be a time before someone logs on an online portal. And we want to understand timing as well. And we also want to understand other parameters as well. For example, which customers are getting to a particular point, or what channel did they use. And lastly, we bring in the value model, and the value model is an overlay of the voice of the customer against that particular journey. That takes us into orchestration. So what kind of help do they need? And as Oliver said, this takes the idea of insight into action into a completely different realm. It's real-time orchestration. And out of the strategies that we've seen that are high-impact strategies, real-time orchestration, if a CX manager or executive is trying to get rapid results really quickly, this is one of the most potent weapons that we've seen to be able to do that. And the way that we do that is we develop a micro strategy, and that strategy is created directly from that particular journey path. And it is then delivered in an interactive dialogue way across either WhatsApp, interactive text or SMS, via email, or through breakout to a human being in a call center. So the last thing that we'd want to do is step number 5, and to say, well, are these strategies effective? And we have a number of capabilities to be able to see and do A/B testing. So I've moved through that really quickly, because the thing that many of you probably joined for today is to really hear a little bit about the application. So I'm going to share 3 case studies with you of what we've done, particularly in financial services. So the first company is a banking customer, and it's a large bank. And the challenge that they want to solve, or we've solved for them, is around not taking up around credit cards during the acquisition stage of the credit card, or the reissuing stage of the credit card. And this is a huge problem. The more data, we've implemented the same use case several times now, and we see that even something as simple as selling a credit card, and someone who goes to that banking sites and starts the registration process, we're sometimes seeing drop-off that's higher than 80% of people who start there and who actually land up using that credit card. We use this 5-step process, and the results that we got out of this is that you can see them in the bottom right-hand corner. The first result, and obviously the most prominent one, is that we were able to achieve a doubling of conversion using this 5-step process at 3 distinct points in the journey: at the card not being taken up, at initiating spend, and card activation. And when you achieve a doubling at 3 points, you can see the difference. You get an exponential increase in conversion. And we're seeing this shape really often in financial services because there's a lot of drop-off. You can see the kind of nudging strategies that we're using. The reason we're getting this kind of impact is that the nudging strategies are highly contextually driven. It's based on a particular person falling off at a particular point, and then combining the idea of surveying to say, well, hi, please tell us why you didn't proceed past this point, and then offering up a dialogue in the same interaction that addresses that particular point. And it's also multi-channel, moving between interactive text and then the email channel that you see there. The next case study is something really different. I was actually on a call with a customer earlier today. And I've actually had 2 customer calls today where they really like this idea. So it seems to be growing in popularity. And this is this idea of a brand-infused journey. And the reason that this is getting prominence is over the COVID years and the switch to digital, there were 2 forces that played out that have created a huge amount of switching in the market. So companies, particularly in financial services, have to move to a value-based model and a brand-based model. And we call this a brand-infused journey. How do you take the brand and the brand attribute, and how do you move that to be valuable to the end client? And the way we do this is we start off and we say, well, what does this journey look like? And in this case, we're talking about a 4-year or 4+ year journey. And this is an investment company, and they focus on retirement annuities. Some parts of the world it's called superannuation. And we then take a look at this journey, and instead of saying, what do we want, how do we measure the experience, we start asking another question of how do we shape this experience? And I think that's an amazing, amazing question to say, well, how do you shape an experience? And we say, how do we want people to feel? And if we want people to feel a particular way, how would we get them to feel that way? So let's say it's a complex financial product and you want people to build up trust. The first thing you'd have to do is explain to them how the product works within the context of the industry. So for an investment product, it would be, for example, the risk-return relationship and an expectation, and also a buy-in from the customer around the kind of risk that they want to take or the kind of retirement that they want to have. And we then look at the toolkit. What tools does that organization have? So it could be a portal, it could be educational tools, it could be messaging. And we take a look at whether that works or whether we need to add to it and how we roll it out across the journey. And this is the net result. This shows the journey shape, but what I like in the originality, it shows how we can take these messages and we can bring them into the journey. So when we started off, they had a welcome message, but we see a huge idle there. We added the WhatsApp channel because people didn't really know what to do, or their members didn't know what to do. In the WhatsApp channel, we started to do education, where we entered a dialogue to say, please let us know what your retirement goals are. And we then build in a landing page that's very specific to their retirement goals, and then move through the journey with the objective of getting to portal registration and portal login. Because once a client is logged into the portal, our customer knows that that customer education is going to be far higher than a customer who's disengaged, and their brand loyalty and trust will have improved as well. And the results that we got from this, once again, have been really excellent. Starting with the N1, we were able to move the engagement rate from 6% to 25%, which is huge. And we were able to do that using this technique over about a 6-week period. We saw something quite fascinating, is that if we were able to get someone to engage in a nudge, so one of these behavioral nudges, 46% of the members who were nudged went on to register successfully. So it really shows us how we can move the customer base based on these nudges, if we get these nudges correct. And once we got them to registration, what was really amazing is we saw very little friction between registration and logging on. And we also did a measurement of the control and test group, and the test group performed 31% better than the control group. So the way that journeys are rolled out is far quicker. Once we did the build, this result was achieved within a 6-week period. So it's highly targeted towards a very specific part of the journey that you would like to optimize. So moving on to the last case study. This is it's a Journey Discovery. It's a corporate investment bank that is one of our clients. And what we did for them, this is really a digital environment. It's app digital. They use it for Forex trading. And once again, we were able to get excellent results around this in being able to see exactly what the nature of the problem is. And we see that there's a high level of drop-off, even though the client thought that this app and online capability was working really well. It's been in the market for 4 or 5 years now. And now we've moved on to addressing and fixing these particular issues. So I'm going to hand back to Oliver just to talk about CX in 2022.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Mike. So I want to illustrate what a big leap forward this combined offering is for CX programs by this example. So many companies are running a survey after, for example, an account opening. So it's a kind of end of journey survey after a customer has made a purchase. And it's interesting to see people who have just opened a new account, how satisfied they are, how easy they found the process, etc. And also look at the likes and dislikes and the verbatims. So this provides us some hints about what to maintain, what maybe to work on. But on the other side, we have to acknowledge that this information is just a piece from a very small group of people, and probably also a group of people that you do not have to worry so much about with regards to the purchase journey, because these people, they have managed to go through the entire purchasing journey until the very end. So in fact, what you miss is the vast majority of people who have started to apply for a new account and then somewhere got lost. So with these people, when you think about making a difference in really driving business performance, here you have the biggest opportunity. And also these people who got lost somewhere, these are the ones who can really tell you what actually matters. So when looking at the benefits of a combined offering, it's quite obvious that it really satisfies core needs of a CX program owner, providing him with the big picture, with the full picture of all customers, giving him the tools to drive the CX metrics, but also it's quite apparent that we satisfy the needs of the internal stakeholders or the internal clients, if you like. And this in turn, of course, also makes the CX manager happy. So take, for example, the digital experience owner. She wants to understand the experiences of all visitors. She wants to help the visitors to reach their goals. And she wants actionable advice about what to improve in order to become even more successful. And likewise, the line of business owner, if it's the head of sales, for example, he's interested in driving financial performance and achieving his sales goals. Or if it's the head of service, he is interested in becoming more efficient and reducing the cost to serve, for example. So very targeted around core CX professionals' needs and their internal stakeholders. And I guess at this stage, we have a short poll. We're interested to see what kind of maturity level we have in the audience today. And I can also see that you are very active in responding. Thanks very much already. So you should now be able to see the results. Interesting, a mixed picture, but the majority stated that we have a customer journey map, but aren't managing the customer journey. So that's a good confirmation that hopefully this webinar is very relevant for you. And we also have some others who have just created a customer journey map, 14%. Others, we hope to be managing journeys within the next 12 months. Also confirms that customer journey and journey management is a hot topic, and that are many, many companies out there who are dealing with this challenge and working on the topic. Excellent. So maybe to conclude, we are, as said, very excited to have this integrated solution, the award-winning experience improvement platform from InMoment together with inQuba's customer journey analytics, orchestration and management platform. We can answer critical business questions with this combined offering. And we believe that together we are much better able to drive your financial success. And also, I think it provides further capabilities to also monitor what kind of impact you make with all of your experience improvement activities. And I guess this is also something that everyone who is working in CX is quite interested in, to demonstrate to the business what kind of impact your own efforts have made, and to then really sustain also the funding in your program and yeah, your own success. So with that,
great.
I hand it back to you, Mike.
Thank you. So just in conclusion, what we've seen, especially coming from a CX environment, is, and with the moves that have happened digitally over the past 2 years, if customer experience professionals are really going to be able to not only understand their customers, but deeply be able to influence and change behavior, this move towards a deeper zoom in at certain points which are problematic in the journey, and the ability to be able to orchestrate from there to change behavior in real time is definitely something that is rising very quickly in prominence. We're also seeing organizations accelerate in terms of their digital capability, which is such a foundational element towards being able to get the value and the capability out of customer journey management. And just one last thing in preparing that I found of interest is wondering what this bird was doing up here in this picture. And I then realized it's actually probably a bird of prey, and these are the starlings here. So I'll just leave you with that thought in being able to shift and change and be able to move the shape of the journeys in the way that you want to be able to move them. So I'm going to hand over to Diana just to coordinate and manage the Q&A. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike and Oliver, for running us through customer journey management. We had a few questions in to be sharing with you in a sec. Just for you as an audience, we will be sharing the recording latest tomorrow with you, so you can share with your colleagues as well, rewatch it and take out the key takeaways. And also we were sending a short survey after, as we always want to improve our webinars and the content we provide. So do let us know if you want to deep dive any further on this subject. So in terms of questions, we had the first question through from Sarah, which is like, how is it different to processing mining tools, the tool you provide?
So we we're actually busy with the implementation of a project for telco in ANZ, and they already have process mining tools. I think they're used for different purposes. Customer journey management is really a customer view of the world. So you're getting your data out of the things that customers do, and you can map certain of those with process mining tools, but process mining tools are not really geared towards customer dialogues or customer engagement. So we're actually using them in collaboration. So a very good example is that with a process mining tool, you should be able to spot a drop-off, but it's unlikely that you'll fully understand the reason behind the drop-off. So with a customer journey management tool, you'll want to engage with that person in real time around that drop-off. Let's say they didn't accept a quote for credit card or a loan product or any other product. We'd want to say to them in real time, please let us know the reason that you didn't. And let's say one group says your costs are too expensive. We would have we would develop a dialogue around that to address the issue of cost, because maybe it's a better product, or if they say interest rates are too high, another group, we would be able to do that. And we started doing more and more work with AI to predict who's going to move through a particular journey, and to be able to feed up these, to serve these dialogues beforehand, to shape and influence even before the person got there. So I hope that answers that particular question.
I believe it does. Otherwise, Sarah, do let us know. Another question came in is whether you can elaborate on how you develop your nudges.
How we develop the?
Nudges, nudging the customer along the journey.
Oh, the nudges. Okay. Yeah. So the way that we do that is we take a look at a point of interest, and that point of interest would be a goal or a sub goal, and we then get a deep segmentation view from the analytics. So we'll always work with segmentation. It's so important. So you could have a group of people who are moving through a digital, let's say it's an onboarding or acquisition stage of a journey, and a young digital group of people may say, well, they don't like this product because there's a better digital competitor. And then the response would be based on that, or the nudge. So we use the insight to create the nudge, and the nudge is then targeted at their group as they pass through. So we actually build up a catalog of reasons as to why people are not moving through a particular point, and then we preempt it either as they get to that point if they don't move through, or we preempt it by putting messaging beforehand. So the nudges are really, they micro nudges served at a very particular segment with context around the problem that they're having. So that's a typical way that we develop them. There's really three categories of nudges. The one is how things work. So we've seen, particularly in financial services, people don't always understand the product. The company understands the product, but the customer doesn't, because these products are more complex for external people compared to the people who develop them. So communication nudges, or how things work around products and capabilities, is super important. The second grouping is really a redirect. So if there's an objection, it could be price or product, or price, product, feature. And the third group is really experiential. So what would we do? Collect that data, but we using triage a lot. So breakout to case management or to call centers, where triage centers are set up within our customers to call that customer back and to handle it via another channel.
Great, thank you, Mike. And one question that came in as well is, many journey management organizations just focused on digital journeys. How do you manage across multiple channels?
Okay, so I think in true journey management, and particularly in financial services, if you really want to do journey management effectively, it has to be omni-channel. So digital channels happen to be the easy channels to get data from. So the first thing that you need, and this is product capabilities, you need excellent connectors, and we've invested hugely in that to bring in a broad range of connectors. So we have connectors into all of the key CRM systems like Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, etc. And we also can connect to back-end database systems. We're a global Microsoft partner, so we connect directly into all of the things in the Azure cloud, and there's a range of other connectors. So if there's data that sits somewhere in the organization, we have a high confidence that we will be able to access that data. So we use different techniques for getting in different transaction points that we need to populate these journeys. So that's really, in summary, it's a big discussion. And if you're interested, we can certainly set up a presentation for you or your company on how you do that. But that's the 90-second answer to that one.
Perfect, thank you, Mike. And I believe you already answered the last question we have from the audience, is whether that can be integrated into existing systems like CRM and CMS. You've mentioned Salesforce. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Perfect. That was all the questions we've had in. So any closing words from you or Oliver before we close this webinar?
Yeah, quickly. Thanks very much for your time and your interest and the questions. I'm sure there are more, and we are more than happy together with inQuba to schedule any further meetings with you to dive into further questions and show you the technology and yeah, the solutions we can offer. So please reach out. We are looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you. So, dear attendees and delegates that joined today, thank you very much for your time today. As mentioned, you're going to get an email tomorrow with the recording and some further reading as well on this subject area, as well as our contact details. So if you want to set up meetings as well to kind of take this topic further, we'll be happy to kind of find some time with you. So thank you very much for today, and hopefully we see you soon again in one of our next webinars. See you then.